I thought I would start with perception, because that's where everything seems to start. So perception has what we call filters. So filters. Just like recently I had a filter at home that was about 1 year old, one of those Brita filters. I hadn't changed the cartridge since who knows when. Hopefully I didn't get some terrible bacteria from it, or nothing grew out of the water and grabbed at me. But I changed the filter, and it's so long ago that they made that particular cartridge that I've had to buy a whole new model from that company. So they've got a new style of flask, a new type of cartridge. So I had to update my technology to have filtered water. So filters, they're very important. After you experience an outside event through your 5 senses, and before you even make a map in your own mind about what that means, you filter the event. We have three different types of jobs that filters will do. So I'll put filters do. First one is delete, distort, and the third function is generalize. When we delete, we're paying attention only to certain aspects of the experience. So say that circle represents all the things that you've experienced, and they're all little dots, all these little details, like there's a cup over there and there's a painting there, and you're taking it all in. When you delete, it's almost like you're saying that part, that doesn't exist. Delete from awareness. So you're removing it from paying attention. So your attention's on one aspect of the whole experience, but not the whole. Distortion. This is where you alter, change reality. You reframe the information that's already been changed by your filters. These three are just the function. I will show you some of the filters later. This is what they do. So something's already been filtered, and then you go and change it further by twisting it out of shape to something else. Now they say that sometimes distortion is helpful. It's helpful with motivation. Or planning. In other words, there are situations where reframing what's come in can give you the go-ahead to, oh, I'll take that on. You know, someone will say, oh, how about climbing that mountain? You've never climbed a mountain before. But if you distort it enough in your mind, you can convince yourself that, well, yeah, if they give me the equipment and the training and there's a helicopter rescue team or something like that, yeah, I'll do that. And so you have this, before you would have said, no way. But through distortion, one of the positive things is that it can make you take on things and you might succeed. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. So distortion can help with motivation and planning. The last one is generalizing. This is where you get a broad conclusion. You know how they pick on certain races, like there's a certain South American people, they always associate with drugs and people disappearing and stuff like that. There's probably more than one of those South American nations where that's sort of thought of. But that's just a generalization. That's one event or a few events in one place, one time, and people just say, oh, well, that's what the whole place, or don't go there, it's dangerous, you won't come out alive. I remember a statistic years ago, I don't know what the current one is, but they said, it might have been 10, 15 years ago, they said if you were a New York policeman, you would have a lifespan of maybe 4 years,
really?
On average, before you got killed, you know. Or the ones that did get killed in duty, I mean, usually within 4 years. So I guess the other ones lasted longer than 4 years or went on to retirement. But most of the ones that did die in the service of of the public, usually within 4 years. So maybe now could be even shorter. But see, you take that, now that might be a statistic, and then you might think, I won't become a policeman and work in New York, so you go somewhere else and you could still get killed over there, or anything. So when you generalise, you take one piece of information and say it really covers the whole lot, which is not really speaking from knowledge. But generalising, a good thing about generalising, it's one of the ways that we learn. If you had to remember every category of activities and all the details, and then say, generalising is it can be a good way to sum things up. Okay. So you might generalise about something that can be useful, like you might Renaissance art, and you might say, in general, anything from Renaissance art, from Italy or Germany, you would expect to like it. And you might find an example, I don't like that statue, but that's part of the Renaissance. Yeah, well, you found an item that doesn't agree. So, but generalising, it's a way of collecting a whole lot of various details and bundling them together. And, sort of like you take your minced meat, not in separate little rolled up pieces, you take it in one bag. So it's a way of collecting these and taking it with you. So learning is a good byproduct of that. So what happens with filters? The filters affect our inner map. So I'll do a drawing or a flow diagram soon. Let's say we have a map of what we think is reality inside our mind. And this map is made up of images, feelings, or feelings is usually things like regret and that. When they talk about emotion, it's usually like anger, fear, sadness, those sort of very basic things. But feelings are more like an emotion plus a particular point of view or a value. So you've got images, feelings, and sounds. So it's like you've made a motion picture inside your head, or you recorded something on your DVD part of your brain, and you've got certain images and the feelings that come with that. You see a roller coaster ride and you start feeling a bit nauseous or a bit panicky, that if I was on that, I wouldn't really like to be on that. And the sounds, what sort of music was playing, or did you hear someone sneezing in the background and think, you're going to get the flu? So there's all these associations, but it's like you've got a movie production house inside there. It's very interesting. Now this map will join up with your physiology, which is just how your body works. It's not the anatomy or structure of the body, but especially the nervous system and maybe some of our glands that secrete things. So that map will eventually affect your body physically. So if someone gives you really bad news, don't you suddenly feel that
anxious or something?
Your body actually feels like a wave or something bristling through you, like someone's passed a magnetic swipe over you, and you go, ooh, what was that? Oh, yuck, what an awful feeling. Or, when someone tells you something exciting, and then, wow, you feel like you're the sun goddess bursting with life and radiating and expanding. And this is all from what someone has told you and how you interpret it and how it affects your physiology. And physiology will lead to a state, which is emotional state. When they say, she was in such a terrible state after they had that little ding at the shopping mall, state. And then that leads to action or behaviour. So I'll draw this in a flow thing, because I like doing flow things. So we'll start with, the world outside of us. Then we've got, the filter. And the filter's got 3 different functions: delete, distort, or generalise. From that you get a map. And the map is not always, it's not the same as the journey. You know how someone can give you a map of Europe, but it's not the same as actually going there. You've just got a piece of paper with writing. You can't assume that's the full information about what you're going to do or what you need to know. So never mistake the map for the journey. Okay, so you've got the world as it is. We filter it. We make a map. After that, what's the next part? Mental blank. The state, an emotional state. And the last part is action. When you get into a state like joy, distress, enthusiasm, or whatever, that state will propel you to take some sort of action. It will become outward in some way, whether it's punching at someone when they've insulted you, or jumping for joy when you've won the lotto. So that's basically what happens. There are 6 filters that they talk about, like in NLP, or at least 6. I'm only going to cover 3 that are more well known. We've got values, which are how you feel about the actions that you do. And they help motivate you. If you feel good about doing certain things, you'll go and feel free. They say feel free to help yourself to a cup of tea. Because you've been given the invitation, you feel free to do it. So, and values happen in a list of, like the ones you want to do, or the ones you value the most, and things like that. Some examples of values, honesty, punctuality, being yourself, being congruous or authentic. There's many values, and it's values that should be driving the decisions you make and the things you want to believe in. And when people talk about, I've got to find my life purpose or find the
true meaning of life,
that other person that they're looking for out there in the big world, you have to start with your values. What is a deal breaker for you? If someone doesn't accept your values, then you're not going to be following certain beliefs, and you're not going to be doing certain behaviours. So if you're looking for something a career, or where you're going to live, or any of these choices to do with your purpose, start to examine what are your values. What do you really hold important? There might be 4 or 5 that are crucial to you, and then everything else should flow from that. So the values help to create your model of the world. The next one is beliefs, and as we continue with these, we're going from that's less conscious and it's becoming more conscious. You're more outwardly aware of beliefs than you are of values. Beliefs, they're assumptions that we make, or ideas that we make about certain things. So one is about how you feel about actions, your values. Beliefs, what ideas you have that you think are true about certain things in life or certain topics. And beliefs can either give you power or let you flow with your own power, or they can hold you back. It can be like kryptonite to Superman and make him suddenly weak. So, so you've got to be careful of your beliefs. So beliefs are like switches. They can go on or off. They can make you competent, empowered to do what you're meant to do, or They can be like a program that halts you in your track. You know, when someone says, oh, why don't you apply for that job? And immediately you've got an inner critic that says, you can't do that. Or I knew someone that wanted to be an air hostess, and I must admit I was a bit negative, because I know they have a height requirement for reaching up to the
baggage
luggage,
area,
and this friend of mine was probably about 6 inches below that level, but she said, I'm not going to let that criterion stop me.
Yeah.
But then I thought, well, what happens when they go and measure you and they say, sorry, it might be OH&S rules somehow, you know, but it's good that she was willing to try.
She gave it a go.
Yeah.
Yeah. But me, I'm thinking they're going to say you're just a bit too short, and no matter how wonderful you are, sorry, we can't let you in. Now, I was putting a limitation there. That was a logical assumption, but you never know. You might find some sort of loophole where they say, we'll write a special contract for you and say, if you have an accident, we'll only give you half as much payout because you're a shorty. That's whatever it is.
Yeah, the loophole is called high heels.
High heels? Yeah, or just get something inserted in your leg bones.
No.
The last one, attitudes. When you do any adult training, like assessment and workplace training,
TAFE course,
that the three things that they try to achieve are to change your knowledge, change your skills, or the third one, change your attitude. So if a corporation or a community group is having problems, they send someone in to assess them and say, have they got the knowledge? Yeah, they know it all. They know all the policies. They know how to do the first aid. They know everything. Have they got the skills, like practical things? Do they know how to work a computer? Do they know how to put a bandage around a wound? Do they know how to do all those other, fill out certain forms? That's all right, but it could be the attitude. What is the attitude? That's often the thing that you can have all the information, you can have all the practical skills, computer skills, personal skills, you know how to talk to people without ticking them off, but if your attitude isn't what the company wants or what the clients want, that can be a weak spot. So an attitude is just a grouping of values and beliefs about some particular thing. And we're usually very conscious of our attitudes. If someone says, what's your attitude towards the killing of whales? Immediately you'll be able to say, definitely, yeah, I'm for it or against it. Whereas values are they can be a bit more vague. They say that changing your attitude is usually harder than changing your values. And that's probably because the attitudes are, I think they're at the highest conscious level. So as you're more conscious, your ego can interfere more, have more say, and say, oh, I'm not going to do that. My attitude's set. I know what I think, and that's it. End of story. So this is all very interesting stuff. Now, let's get on to some belief-changing therapies, and then at the end I'll give an example of a very practical part of life that affects a lot of people, or people that you might know. Alright, let's look at belief-changing type people. They're like life coaches, psychotherapists, I guess even personal trainers training you to change your body. So we know, if you read all the New Age stuff and the health magazines, there are so many of these different systems, and everyone's saying, use this technique, use this model.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, either they've got the right model and the right methods, and we will guarantee you that limited belief that's blocking you from success, that will be gone. That one particular thing will be gone permanently, and sometimes I say very, very quickly, instantaneously. So I've read somewhere that,
But isn't that their belief?
well, it could be
Doesn't
also
mean-
marketing. It could be
Yeah.
saying, you know, it's sort of like our soap cleans better than the other brand of soap. So our model of understanding you and our techniques for changing you are better than some other group. So sort of people that you might run into all right, let's say CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy, that relies a lot on rational debating about things, and this one that you've got with you is sort of like a checklist to help you become aware of things that are bothering you, and then it asks you to take action and things like that and see how you feel about the decisions. So that one relies a lot on logic. It's the idea that how you think will change your behaviour. Okay. Another one, you might want to write these down because you might want to investigate them yourself. This one's SCHEMA, schema therapy. I'll just put THPY. That's similar to CBT, but it goes a bit deeper. They try some other experimental things like Gestalt work, and attachment theory. Attachment theory is the idea that we connect to someone when we're young, and if that person leaves us, we end up with like a separation anxiety. So you've got cognitive behavioural therapy and schema therapy. Schema therapy is often used with people that basically have a really severe limiting belief. We could almost say they've got a personality disorder, so that's a psychiatric situation, or just very high levels of constant fear. Nearly everything they say or do is driven by fear. Oh, I won't go to the cinema. Oh, I might get stabbed. I won't go to the escalator. I might trip over and slash my shin open. I won't go in the plane because we'll hit a mountain in Canada. And all this, everything. It's sort of like the splinter in the mind that they talk about in the Matrix. Something's embedded in there. Until it's removed, everything you give to them, it gets distorted, reframed into I can't do it, and I'm afraid to even move towards it. So CBT and schema therapy, they sort of fit in one level. Another one, NLP. I'm sure everyone's heard of NLP.
Yes.
NLP is very popular.
I don't know much about it.
It's based on the idea that we take in information through our five senses. Some people are more influenced by what they hear, others more by what they see, others more by what they touch. So what they do is they try and work out which of these ways of getting information you're more influenced by. So then they will try and reinstall a new program, a new belief, influencing you more through, say, touch or sound or...
It's not like kinesiology, is it?
Kinesiology is like a muscle testing thing. I will mention that later. So NLP uses these sensory cues that we have to rearrange the furniture of the mind. So for some people, playing some big patriotic band music doesn't make them fall in love with their country, but maybe an image of a child from your race crying in the gutter, that image might get you, whereas the patriotic music for that country doesn't do a thing. So it's and that's that way. It's sort of like, not like brainwashing, but they're reframe your brain.
Say if you've got a psychiatric illness and you try NLP, is that dangerous for the psychiatric patient?
I'm not really sure about that. It's
I was just wondering.
Yeah. I could look that up for you. I mean, you're on the the meetup thing.
Yeah.
I could look that up for you and send you a message.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
I can send you a message. I'm not sure how many words you can write in the in the meetup.
It's a bit limited.
Is it? Is it?
Oh,
I don't know how many
no,
words.
I don't know.
Otherwise,
yeah.
I can send you an email if you like, because I've been
Okay.
looking into spirituality and mental health for a long while, but that's one thing I'm not sure of, so I don't want to say anything that I'm not sure of. Okay, so there's NLP, uses the sensory cues to remove those negative feelings or behaviours. Something in the same vein is timeline therapy. Timeline therapy. And I actually went through it once myself at a seminar. What happens is you imagine, think of an event that really distressed you. Like say you were in a queue at the bank and someone behind you bumped you and you bumped the person in front, and that person in front turns around and says, "Excuse me, where are your manners?" And then you feel embarrassed, you feel like, I didn't do anything wrong. It's almost like something out of one of those Larry David dramas or comedies. So you get back into that state, that feeling state. What did you feel? What did you hear? What did you smell? What did you when that moment happened? And then you imagine yourself above the earth in space. So you're out in space and it's all pitch black, just the stars, and all you can see way down below you is a timeline, and say this is now, and that's into the future, and that's obviously into the past. So you're reliving that awful moment. You take yourself up into space, so to speak, and you're looking down on that event. And then, or another alternative, I think, is they sort of go up, but up and out at an angle, and you're moving back in time and keeping your eye on this timeline, realising that, say, now that event that happened over there, but I'm moving up and away from that event, so I'm getting further away, and I'm also moving back in time. And what they say is keep moving back in that direction into the past, until the feeling that you had, that you relived a moment ago, starts to like melt away. You go further and further and
into
further.
space.
Yeah, it's sort of like you're retreating, so that the scene that you were living through, or the image and the memories, you'll probably find a spot as you retreat back that that event doesn't affect you, and you're also realising that you're taking your awareness to the time before that event happened. So before it happened, you couldn't have felt anything about it because it hasn't happened. You see what I'm saying? You're playing with your mind. That now you're taking your awareness. You're seeing the event, and now you're going up and away and back in time. You're going further from it, and you're now looking into the future before it's happened. So how could it have affected you if it hasn't happened? What feeling could you have before it's taken place? And then they say, now move back and then drop yourself. Imagine yourself coming back over that and drop yourself back into the body you were, the environment, that room with that person, and see, what do you feel now? I tried this with a terrible customer I had at Grace Brothers, and I had to go to court to testify against him. And I tried this exercise because I found him so obnoxious. And when I returned back into that situation, it didn't have any power over me. Like that awful cringing feeling. I actually started to smile, and this is what happened to a lot of the people in the seminar. And the guy up the front said, "Oh, I see a lot of people are breaking out into smiles here, like they're sort of giggling at, what was I worried about? It's gone." It's like you've retrained your awareness.
So this is something you can do on your own?
You could do it on your own. We just had, yeah. Oh,
like someone
well,
who
I mean,
understands.
if it's something really severe, I guess you would need a therapist. But it's something that you can try on your own at home with some relaxing music. Now, I don't know whether it's going to remove that permanently, but some of these things they say, just keep practicing them.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, when you eat a meal, you don't say I have one meal and that's going to last me 60 years. No, if you don't find it works, just persist. Like you take vitamin supplements or something. But I found that when I returned myself back above that event and then dropped down out of space back into my body and that situation, that awful feeling, the distress was gone, and I was smiling like a Buddha. And other people were smiling because it didn't hurt, didn't upset me. So that's timeline therapy. Something that anyone can do. Won't cost you a cent.
So could I get information about that on the internet?
Oh yeah, timeline
good.
therapy. Yeah, I mean, I could even
I like
send.
that.
I could.
Yeah, it sounds good,
I
doesn't
could
it?
send you a link.
Okay.
Yeah, if you. I've given you a card with a.
Yeah,
Yeah, you
okay.
can send me an email if you like. Another one is EMDR. I'm not quite sure what the D is.
What was
EMDR, eye movement,
Oh.
something. I've forgotten what the R is too. Sorry. EMDR. It's similar to something to do with NLP and kinesiology. You know how when in NLP they say if someone's telling the truth, their eyes move either up or down. I forget which way, but they either swing from left to right and up and down, or down and up, whichever.
The eyes.
Yeah, yeah. You know when someone, when your teacher would ask you, where were you 3 days ago? And when you think and go back into your memory, have you ever remembered that you had to stop looking the teacher in the eye and you had to flick your eyes away in a particular direction? And that way, somehow that's to do with the brain accessing that file, and for some reason moving the eyes away from watching that person allows you to do that. But they will say, look me in the eye, stop flittering off into the distance. But it's part of the way we work, apparently, according to NLP. And all you're doing is honestly trying to remember to give them the information.
To
But
say,
they assume that you're not paying attention and you get told off. So this eye movement thing, there are ways that they can use the eye movement as well as installing a new program in your mind, and that will help. I don't know whether it's permanent, but it's another thing that you can look into. And then everyone's probably heard of pens that run out. We'll try the blue one. Thought field therapy. And there's also emotional freedom. I'll just put emotional freedom technique. And kinesiology, the muscle testing. Now all of these work on
What's that? EM?
Emotional freedom technique.
Emotional
Yeah, I
freedom.
know, my writing is terrible.
No, I wasn't.
Yeah, I just tried to shorten it. Emotional freedom technique, and it's similar to thought field therapy. It's to do with pressure points, meridians, and saying affirmations, and then they try and find out what statement you say actually drains you of energy and which meridian it might be. And then they try and unblock that so that when you go and say, I am worthwhile, I deserve to be rich, or I, you know, this or that, you don't weaken that particular meridian. So they found even looking at certain photographs can weaken, depending on the look of the person's face and what you perceive is behind that look, like anger or disgust or fear, whatever. The Chinese say that we have each meridian's attached to a particular emotion or mental state. So, for example, the kidneys are to do with fear, which is an interesting correlation to that. When people get very fearful, they have a sudden urge to urinate. So, I mean, you can put that could be just you know, a coincidence, but there could be something to that. So the fear factor gets the kidneys working. So the Chinese have been working on some things for quite a long while, so they're connecting meridians and emotions. That's a whole topic in itself. So these are more or less dealing with pressure points, meridians, and statements of belief and rearranging them. So the last section, I thought I'd cover you probably know somebody that's been trapped in some sort of maybe a cult or a spiritual scheme of thinking that's very limiting, very painful, that might have led to them needing psychiatric help. So I want to talk about something, because it's something I went through myself. You could call it spiritual abuse, spiritual trauma, spiritual recovery. But if you've been under any sort of spiritual system, cults or particular religions, and it's not that religion in itself is necessarily bad. It's when, well, even if they're saying something that's true, it's how you base your life or how you adapt to their principles, and you might do things that are unhealthy for yourself. You might misapply a teaching and end up having a dreadful experience. So we'll call this spiritual trauma or spiritual abuse recovery. And I need better writing recovery. That's terrible.
That's okay.
You can read it. Yeah. I'm glad. I like your inner map. So, when we talk about sort of spiritual systems, that often people just say, "Oh, just teach them the truth or show them scientific reasons or logical reasons and get them out of it." But it's not as simple as that. So the first step, what I did was I read an expert called Marlene Winnell. She's written a whole book called Leaving the Fold, and it's a guide for anyone that's been trapped in what you call a fundamentalist mode of thinking. And when they've left that system, they either don't know whether to become atheists or to find something else that's spiritual. But for a lot of them, they go through a very painful experience when they leave, because there's a whole lot of things associated with leaving. So I've just tried, she had about 9 points. I just picked and summarised about 4 to make it simpler. First one we'll call reality check. Okay, reality check. You need to start to realise that your system of spiritual teaching or indoctrination or what you think is truth is not really working for you. It's doing you harm. It's not making sense intellectually, and you find either emotional or moral problems from carrying those beliefs out in practice. When a system is dogmatic, when it says this is the only truth and you've got to do what we say, some people can be so trapped by that being told that they are literally afraid to ask questions or to challenge anything. So often doubts and questions feel dangerous because they think, oh, am I slipping into the darkness? Am I going off the path? Am I in some sort of cosmic problem here, you know? Because they haven't been allowed or encouraged to think for themselves. But you have to get to that first point where you realise something stinks, something's not working, and it's not necessarily that something that you're believing isn't true, but in some way it's not helpful for you and you might need to just readjust. So check your reality. The second point, I'll just say information. This is where a lot of people sort of start. Say, give them a pamphlet, give them a psychology text, get them to watch an atheist program on YouTube or something, watch Zeitgeist and all these other things. Do everything you can to educate yourself. You are free to read, watch videos, access all the knowledge that's on the internet, and it could be all sorts of topics. like with this sort of area, you'd be looking into, say, history, like church history, philosophy, because a lot of the church doctrines were influenced by Greek philosophers, and still got carried through. What else? Let's see. Other religions. Now that's something that's usually discouraged. You were told by some groups, don't look into what, other religions.
Yeah,
like don't investigate them because some dark power or just your ignorance will confuse you, upset you. You won't be able to live the life that we are living, or that you'll start doing things in another area, mythology.
Oh, that's another interesting one.
Yeah, mythology. There are very fascinating links between the Christ story and pagan saviours that were before his time that virtually did the same activities. Some of the details are almost carbon copied.
Is that scary to look at, mythology?
Well, depends. If you
like, if it talks about the devil or
you don't have to worry about like Satanism or the dark stuff, but mythology, as in terms of
Greek gods, goddesses.
Yeah, well, you might see some of the things like about Zeus might reflect in the Jesus character or the Old Testament God Yahweh. But that's a whole thing that I might like to talk about at another time. But mythology often gives you clues as to what's going on in the whole story to help you make sense of it. Science, psychology, because some things that get taught are definitely against known modern science, and yet people will stick to that, and they'll cut themselves off from their friends and family because, you don't believe the same thing, you're this or that. You are encouraged to read authors who can give an explanation of why they were part of that system at one stage and now they've left, and they give like their own reasons. So if you found people that can give reasonable answers for why they've changed, that gives people encouragement that maybe they're not the only one. So you can learn about the origins of, like church history especially. I think if you look at the origins of that particular system of faith, and also the origins of any holy books, how did they get recorded, how they get copied, who decided what's good and what's genuine, and all this sort of stuff. And whether any of the people that founded those, if there's evidence that they actually lived in history, or whether there's, And another thing is certain themes or key beliefs or doctrines you might find can be traced back to ancient Egypt or Mesopotamia or India, and that later on, say the Jewish and Christian people are just sort of reworking other themes and then saying it's their idea or their way of doing things. So I won't go any further into that. We'll get on to the third one, so we have a bit of time for discussion. Support. Support for the emotions and for healing. If you're healing from a toxic faith system or dogma, it's not just an intellectual exercise, as I said before. You can reject, say, for example, a belief in a literal hell, and there are even modern Christians that say, we don't believe in hell, it's just a phrase or something. But someone that was taught that and believed that and felt that because they've left the faith, that if they died, they'd go to this awful place, even though their mind is saying, we know where that came from our research into history and language and things, but there's still that fearful thing in the gut instinct that says, what if it's true? What if it's true? And that gnaws at them and really devastating. And then they're worried about people that have passed on. where are they now? Are they up there or down there cooking with gas? You know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, imagine if you believe that and people you love, you're terrified, like, where did they go? What if you believe in an afterlife? So this can be pretty damaging. So this will affect the emotions. Many emotions get involved, like anxiety, anger, depression, loneliness, grief. I mean, when you've held a belief system, it's like, it's a bubble. And like the majority of the world might say, this is how things go, like this, and you're saying, no, it goes like that. And now all of a sudden, your bubble has burst, and you're left with all the emotional, social, intellectual, all the aftermath. It's like coming out of the womb, like the sack full of fluid. The sack breaks, and now you're born. Now you're born out into another type of world where you can't go back to that one anymore. And you say, where the hell do I go now? Where do I turn? Where's the beam of light? Where's the next thread, the next clue, like something in Harry Potter or Indiana Jones? So a lot of people end up in a terrible void, a big vacuum, and they will need support. So there are online forums for people recovering from religious indoctrination. There are community groups. You know, go to your community health centre or whatever.
They run like
yeah, like maybe there's a migrant ladies group for people that have left a particular faith or they're persecuted or whatever, and they're trying to adjust their life into another way of doing things, maybe a more Western way, whatever their choice is. Not that one's better than the other. You can find a therapist, go on a retreat, all these different things. And you need to give yourself time to process the feelings, and you have to learn to trust yourself again. Because before, you were like a child, you know, they tell you this is it, and you say, all right, yes, that's true, all right, now I know what to do. I'll go and ask so-and-so's or on his authority, what should I do, who should I marry, what job will I do, what's, you know, ethical. Now you have to trust yourself, and that can be quite scary. The last part is rebuild your life. So, releasing a toxic spiritual worldview means you rethink your identity. Who are you now? You had one way of, you had yourself summed up. It's sort of like Clark Kent really knows that he's Superman, but imagine if he said, am I actually Superman anymore? Do I have those powers? Like, what can I do? Who am I? It'd be a terrible crisis. So you have to rethink who you are and what is the new meaning of life for you after leaving that situation. And obviously when you have certain beliefs, you have a certain structure to your life. It includes what sort of activities you join in socially, like do you gamble, do you not gamble, do you drink, do you not drink, do you watch naughty movies on the internet or not, whatever you think you're allowed to do. So these sort of things will be affected. So it's social stuff, work-related stuff. Before you might have been advised, only make friends with people that have the same belief because they will drag you down. Not that you will inspire them and show them a higher way of being, whether you're New Age or whatever. They usually think, the outsider, the non-convert will pull you away from the good stuff. So it affects who you work with, who are your friends, relationships. I mean, some people's families are being divided, so some get converted to one thing and some stay in another and say, we don't talk to them anymore, and this is terrible. So there's a lot of rebuilding to do based on what you think and believe and how it affects your life. So it's your responsibility to reclaim your life, not anyone else's. It's your mission, your job to take that up, discover your identity, and commit to new values. You need values, or maybe you need to apply your original values in a better way. And finally, you learn to love and trust yourself and rejoin the world instead of putting yourself in a corner where you think there's nobody else around but just us few goody-goodies. So with that, we can start a discussion, I guess, or have a look at the... Thank you.